And then we end up regretting it when we see the possibilities, the opportunities that we let slide by because of our own thinking, the limitations we place on ourselves. And I've learned a lot of that. I guess part of it is exposure as well, what you're exposed to, what you allow yourself to, to get into. It gives you that different mindset.
Leaders Talk, Season 2.
Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome back. It's your favorite time of the week, and it's my favorite time of the week. It's time for Leaders Talk, and as usual, I am your intrepid host, Andrew Dupe, Head of Communications here at Leaders Brands. And today, with me, I have as my guest, Sharmyn Powell. Now, Sharmyn is a respected leader with 3 decades in central banking in the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. And as the bank's first chief risk officer, she built its enterprise and management function and led the development and launch of DC Cash, the region's digital currency pilot. As a global fintech and risk expert, she has been recognized among the top leaders in risk management by Insights Magazine, one of the top 5 leaders in fintech, driving the impact of CIO today, and is one of 5 female leaders who went from vision to victory at MSN. In March 2026, she received the International Women's Day Women in Finance Award from Nevis Island Administration. Sharmyn also recently completed a secondment in the BIS Innovation and Hub Swiss Central, contributing to projects on tokenization and cross-border payments. As a USA National best-selling author, she is a frequent guest on the global panelist on risk and the CBDCs. As an accountant by profession, Sharmyn is a fellow in the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants and holds a designation including Chartered Director and Audit Committee Certified. She currently leads payments modernization and financial inclusion in the ECCB and remains a key contributor in her leadership role. And importantly to us, very importantly today, she is here to talk about chasing horizons, why the road to success never ends. Sharmyn, welcome.
Thank you very much.
That's a lot.
It's really a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. That's a lot of accomplishments. So, as someone who has worked, if anyone goes and looks at my LinkedIn in risk myself, I at least have some understanding of what you do, but maybe run down some of that for our audience today, maybe that don't know a lot about it, just so they kind of understand what you do and a little bit about how you fit in.
So in terms of risk management, so prior to my current role, from 2016, I was appointed first Chief Risk Officer of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. And in that role, I had to build the enterprise risk management function from the ground up. Risk management was previously in internal audit, and it was separated into a separate function. So I had responsibility for building the enterprise risk management function from the ground up. And so that meant doing the framework, all the reporting strategy, etc. So that was a very interesting time for me because then it was something new. Having been at the bank at that point, I would have been at the bank for over 20 years. In 2016, actually, it was actually 20 years at that point in time. So it was something new to start doing. And then shortly after, we started with the CBDC, the Central Bank Digital Currency Pilot Project, which I led as well, which is a digital version of our currency across over 8 member countries. And so I led that project. That pilot project was launched in March of 2021, and it went on for 3 years. In 2023, December, I went to the BIS Innovation Hub. Yeah, I did a secondment there. So 2-year secondment at the BIS Innovation Hub, where I worked on various projects, including Project Agora, which was recently completed, that project. And that's about tokenization and cross-border payments. I also worked on Project Promisa, which was the tokenization of promissory notes. So I've had quite a bit of exposure in terms of tokenization, in terms of fintechs, in terms of risk management, in terms of CBDCs in general. Coming back to the ECCB in January of this year, I had a new role being the head of payments modernization and financial inclusion. So that's my new role here at the ECCB. And in this role, it's about modernizing our payment system, looking at instant payment systems, cross-border payments, and how we can really modernize our payment system in the Eastern Caribbean. So that's my new role.
Very good. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, it's obviously there's a lot, there's a lot to everything you've done. But I think Chasing Horizons is as much about that as more even about just how you actualize these things, how you find your way through and
Yes.
become that. Because I, again, as someone who worked in risk, in prevent check fraud prevention and understanding of and mobile deposit capture. I know there's not many women in power positions in that industry, at least not in the United States. So tell us a little bit, just not just about your exact accomplishments, but about your journey yourself and how Chasing Horizons kind of goes into it.
So Chasing Horizons actually came about after I did a contribution to an anthology. So
Yes.
earlier last year,
And we have an episode for that,
2025.
ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, 2025, I was invited by Leaders Brand to contribute to an anthology about success DNA. And in going through that process, it caused me to reflect on my journey, my
Mhm.
accomplishments, my challenges, how I overcame them, what I was able to do. And it kind of sparked something in me to kind of share that story beyond just the chapter in the anthology. And as I wrapped that around my mind, though, having discussion with the guys at Leaders Brand, what actually came to my mind was why not write something where it showcases not just my story, but the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union and other
Mhm.
persons in the region who has gone through different challenges.
Right.
Because the truth is, in the Eastern Caribbean, we are small. We're very small, relatively small compared to the rest of the world. Combined population of 600,000 people,
Hmm.
and so a relatively small landmass combined. But despite our small size and our limitations, we have had several levels of success. Individuals have succeeded in various areas. We have had persons who got Olympic gold medals. In the 100-meter gold medalist is from St. Lucia, which is one of our ECCO countries. The 100-meter, the gold medalist for the triple jump is from Dominica, which is another of our ECCO countries. So the idea is to showcase that. So in terms of my journey, I would have had several challenges along the way, which I had to overcome in achieving the various levels of success that I've been able to enjoy. So I wanted to share that story so persons can have that mindset that,
Mhm.
despite the challenges, despite the shortcomings, despite the limitations, it is possible to, in fact, enjoy success. You know, success is possible. And then one of the chapters in the book, which is very important to me, very near and dear to me, is it's never too late.
Yeah.
Because I would tell you that the majority of my success, in my opinion, has been in the last 10 years.
Mhm.
What I've accomplished in the last 10 years pales in, I mean, what I accomplished prior to the last 10 years, in my mind, it pales in comparison to what I accomplished in the last 10 years. However, what I've been able to accomplish now is based on what I went through in those earlier years. Those earlier years prepared me for what I'm enjoying now.
Yeah. That's really important. Resilience is something that's important, and I think, interestingly enough, I talked to a lot of business leaders on this show. In fact, just a few hours ago, I talked to another one, Dr. Glenn Robinson. He said many of the same things that it's all about overcoming those challenges that build you into someone that can sometimes find success. Now, I mean, obviously, some people get very lucky, or some people are, you'll run into the occasional Mozart that immediately at 9 years old has already mastered his art, but that's not very common. That's actually fairly rare. So, do you feel like the first part of your life was really finding your way into what was going to fit for you the best?
I think a part of it, yes, because I mean, I went through different situations. And so it's finding that niche. So, but early
Mhm.
on from high school, I knew I wanted to do accounting. That was a given. I like figures, I like math, and I wanted to do accounting. But beyond that, it was what I am now is shaped by my various experiences. So I would have, gone through different university, even coming to work at the bank. So this year I'm celebrating 30 years at the bank. But
Mhm.
even as I went through the bank, most of my early years would have been in accounting. But then I think when I got into the chief officer role, it kind of changed my perspective
Yeah.
and it kind of jump started what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and it's all about the idea of perseverance, though, to get to that point, because I know many people who will sometimes fall into ruts, and they'll sometimes get to the situation where they're like, well, I'm in my 40s now, or I'm in my early 50s now, and I've been doing one thing for all of that time. And they'll sometimes ignore opportunity, or they'll sometimes say, oh, yeah, that's not really the thing that I think I'm going to be able to do. I never thought I would have this show. I mean, to me, I didn't start doing this until my 40s, and it's only one small part of what I do at Leaders Brands, but it's one of my favorite things. But I always told myself in my mind this is something you can't do. So do you feel like you had some of that feeling of, this is something you can't do, or this is something you shouldn't do and you should be
In
safe?
particular, something like this, I never thought I would do it because public
Mm,
speaking was never my thing.
yeah.
It was like I always shied away from public speaking until I took on the chief risk officer role and then the DCASH role and the CBDC role, where I was forced to do public speaking. I was forced to do interviews. And so it took me outside of my comfort zone, but it also opened up a whole new world for me,
Mhm.
a whole new world of opportunities. So, truth be told, when I was approaching my 50s, approaching age 50, I was
Mhm.
thinking retirement. I was thinking, okay, it's almost time to retire. But then something sparked
Mhm.
those opportunities to speak, opportunities to have interaction with persons, seen a whole different world, then sparked something else within me that caused me to now chase something else.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, and there's that thing too. You're avoiding the thing that people run into sometimes at our age, which is regret. Because and I think that's the thing that to me, I'm more afraid of that than I am of failure and in a lot of things, because if you don't take that opportunity, then later on in life, what doors did you not open for yourself? What doors did you not open for other people? What doors did you close? And you're being able with Chasing Horizons to tell people, when you chase your horizons, you won't run into that R word when it comes on later down the line.
Correct, correct. And it's always the what if I didn't, what if? And as I mentioned in the book itself, I said, a lot of us get to a point where we see somebody who might be older than us achieve something. And we thinking that could have been me had I not thought that if it didn't happen by a certain time, it can't happen again. Or, some reason dissuaded ourselves from doing things. And then we end up regretting it when we see the possibilities, the opportunities that we let slide by because of our own thinking,
Mhm.
the limitations we place on ourselves. And I've learned a lot of that. I guess part of it is exposure as well, what you're exposed to, what you allow yourself to get into.
Mhm.
But it gives you that different mindset. So if you stay in a closed environment, there's a tendency that you tend to limit yourself. But if
Mhm.
you open your mind and your thinking and yourself, you allow yourself to think big, to dream big, to reach out, then you're able to do a lot more.
Yeah. And you talk about that in the book, the concept of self-actualization. So, for some of our audience are thinking, okay, that's great, but what are the strategies? What are the practical things that I might be able to learn when I pick up your book and read it? Without spoiling the entire thing, because we want you to go ahead and buy that book, ladies and gentlemen. But without spoiling it, what are some strategies that you discuss in the book to help people maybe self-actualize and move past those mental blocks that say I can't, or I shouldn't, or I should quit, or I won't?
So one of the things you have to look at, for example, life is about risk management. Looking at risk management
Yep.
in life, I think a lot of times you look at risk management from a business perspective. And in the book, I give various examples of risk management in everyday life. And I think when we sit down and we do that risk management, risk assessment of our lives, it allows us to make certain decisions that we probably wouldn't have made otherwise,
Mhm.
because it's something that we think are outside of our reach. When you do that actual assessment, you realize it is within our reach. Then you have to know what drives you. You have to know what is that feed, what is that force that drives you. Very often we do things because somebody else wants us to do it.
Yeah,
It's what
yeah.
somebody else wants. What is that drives you? And also knowing one of the things very important is knowing that your dream is important. Everything is important. It's not about what somebody else thinks, what you think. So your dream is important. How do you position yourself? And how do you mentorship? Mentorship is important. Talk to people. No man is an island. We can't succeed alone. Very often I find what we do, we have ideas, but we want to keep it to ourselves because we're afraid that somebody else. But you have to talk to people. You can't succeed alone. And then the other thing, that's important, stepping outside your comfort zone.
Mhm.
Nothing is ever achieved if you stay inside your comfort zone. Sometimes it's difficult, and your comfort zone, stepping outside your comfort zone doesn't always mean a physical move. It can be mental, it can be psychological as well.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to have to be one major leap. It can be small steps. But it's about stepping outside your comfort zone. It's about not giving up. And in the book, I gave several examples where had persons given up. For example, if Michael Jordan had given up after he make his basketball team in high school, where would he be now?
Yeah.
So it's about not giving up. It's about trying. It's about pushing yourself. It's about having that self confidence, building that self confidence that you can do it, you can achieve. And if you have a dream, go after it. Go after it. You have to make sacrifices sometimes, and that's okay. You will make mistakes sometimes, and that's okay. It's about picking yourself up after you made a mistake and trying again.
Yeah, and there's so much that I hear that a lot, and I think that that's something that we can't hear enough of. That sometimes failure is the actualization that you need to move on to something else. I mean, again, as someone else who worked in risk management, I know that a lot of that in risk management is when do you take the risk? It's not about closing the doors and saying, okay, we're gonna shelter ourselves. It's about how do we find the opportunities in which, yeah, we might have a risky financial proposition, but is it that risky that we have to say no and cut it off completely? So yeah, I love that you're opening the door of saying you're going to run into failure. And in banking, I know in risk management, you run into failure. You will take risks that you shouldn't have taken, but then you have the successes that go along with it that balance it out.
Yeah, it's about learning from your mistakes as well.
Right.
Yeah, you have to learn from your mistakes. In life, you will fail, and sometimes it's about also just stop, just waiting, sit back, wait, and then make a next move. Recalibrate. Adjust.
So,
yeah, it's a process. It is a process.
Yeah, the process of building. You can't work without failure. So one of the processes you did was actually sitting down and writing this book, because I know we talked a long time ago at the very beginning of this, and something that you said earlier, some people think they want to do things just because others told them. And I remember one of the things you told me a long time ago is that people always said you should write a book, things like that. But it was you that actualized yourself to say,
Yes.
I am going to do this. Because up until that point, people can tell you should do this all you want, but until you yourself decide,
Yes.
I want to do this, it's not going to happen, is it?
It's not going to happen. It's not. And if you do it because somebody else wants to do it, it's going to be that much more difficult.
Right.
I can tell you, because when I decided I was going to write a book,
Yep.
It was a very fulfilling process. I enjoyed writing the book. I actually look forward to the time I was sitting at my computer and start typing, because it was what I wanted to do. It was something that brought me joy, something that I wanted to see it happen.
And you used the strategies that you just said. You looked for help, which I'm glad that we were here. We were here to help, and we continue to be here with you for help. But now you also can pass things down. You can begin to use this as something that you can mentor with, to build off of, and to help people grow. I mean, is that kind of what really got you excited when you started sitting down and becoming excited to sit down every day and write?
Yeah, I think so. Two things for me. It was one, giving persons a voice who probably didn't have a voice before. So there are persons in the book who has a story, but because their stories isn't one that is going to be in the lights, isn't going to be widely publicized or widely celebrated, it probably would never be heard. But it was a story worthwhile telling. So I think that was one of the things and then it's about ultimately helping others who are coming behind. That if you have a dream, don't give up on your dream. Anything is possible. You can do it. These are some things that you can use to get you to where you want to go. So it's about helping persons who have achieved or who are achieving to have their story told, but also helping persons who haven't started yet, who are thinking about starting, who have started but are discouraged, to say,
Yeah.
hey, you can do this. Your story is worth telling. You have a story.
Oh yeah, and you have a lot of practical stories as well in the book that you tell. So I mean, that's one of the things that I think is good about it, that really kind of catches you, is that it's not just philosophy. You're talking as well about actual practical things, narratives that you've run into, in which you can. We don't have a lot more time, but maybe you can kind of give our audience a little bit of a preview of what that would be.
Sure. So we have a wide range of stories in the book. So I mentioned before, we have two Olympian gold medalists in the book who came from small islands. One, Julian Alfred, who who won the 100 meters in Paris 2 years ago. And her story, she started running barefooted on dirt tracks, but she was determined that she wanted to do more. We have Thea Lafond, who was a triple jump gold medalist. She's from Dominica. She moved to the US at a young age, but once she learned she could represent her country, she made that choice, but it came with challenges. That choice to represent her home country versus representing the US where she's living, that came with challenges. Then we have individuals who pursued their academic studies, who had, who came out of poverty, but they pushed themselves. I have one former classmate who had a broken hand in primary school and decided, I want to be a doctor. So it's those kind of inspiring stories. Persons who came from very humble beginnings, who had very little, but they made something of themselves. A number of stories like that are in the book.
Yeah, and that's what I think that I think makes the book a very good hook, is that those kind of stories are things that people can understand. It's not just going into talking about, oh, how I succeeded in finance and how you could too. It's also about how you can just use these things to actualize yourself into your life, and whether it be finance or whether it be athletics or whether it be medicine. Those are things that you
one person who is a chef, and what she had to go through to be a chef, because persons think being a chef is not prestigious occupation.
Yeah, tell that to Gordon Ramsay. Well, Sharmyn, I think we're kind of running a little low on time, but I kind of want you to just maybe wrap some things up in maybe a golden nugget, something for the audience that they can take away, that they can immediately use and inspire them to pick up this book, or even just inspire them in their own life right now.
Chasing Horizons is it's like having a conversation with yourself. It's looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing where you are and where you want to be, and really encouraging yourself to pursue that dream. Everybody's dream is worth something. Your dream, no matter how small it is, worth something. And it's about what it means to you as an individual. It's not about what somebody else thinks, but you mean as an individual. How does it make you feel? So I would encourage persons to Chasing Horizons, and it will give you a whole new perspective on life. Persons who are probably at like my age in the 50s, who thinking it's the end, it probably is the beginning. There is so much more out there for you. There are so many opportunities that are waiting for you. So it's about never giving up, always pushing yourself, always believing in yourself, and knowing that you can make a difference.
Yeah, and I think that really is important, and I think that the book really gets that message across. Well, Sharmyn, how can our audience find out a little bit more about you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, so I can be found on LinkedIn. That's mostly where my information is, on LinkedIn. So anybody can search for me on LinkedIn, and they can find. I have articles there. I post a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, so most of the things are on LinkedIn. Yes.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those links are down below, as is the link to Chasing Horizons. Go ahead and pick it up. It's an inspirational read. I enjoyed it a great deal. Sharmyn, thank you so much for being here. We'll be back in touch. You've been on 2 times. We have a 3 times club on here. So maybe you should join the 3 times club. I think we'd love to hear from you again.
No problem. It was great.
Thank you.